Welcome to a Monday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. Bill, I trust you had a good weekend. How'd it go?
I had a great weekend. Can we talk about your mustache? It is glorious. And if you're not watching on YouTube, every day for the last week, this thing is becoming more and more Magnum PI. It kind of gets obscured in the casual vibe we have here, but we're on CBS Sports HQ at 5 o'clock, 5:10 p.m. Eastern today, and it pops. Because John gets all the John drip and the mustache when he's the sports coat. Is it going well in the personal life? The wife likes it. The friends like it.
You went right into it. We got a lot of feedback. We did HQ less Friday, and Haley Sutton was a big fan. You're a big fan. It's mostly been work feedback. People in my personal life have just not really said anything at all. It just kind of happened. I was saying to producer Aaron, around Christmas, I've had a beard many times, and around Christmas I hadn't been shaving, and I was like, well, let me just see what this thing is like. I'll get rid of it. And then it's just kind of stuck around for a minute.
I love it. It's like the thunder. It's a force of nature, and I'm here. I'm a believer.
That's a professional transition. Later in the show, we're going to talk about Weekend Radar and Team of the Night. But first, we got to talk about the team that Bill just brought up, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Bill, holy hell, are they on a roll? They beat the Celtics. The Celtics had come in winning 8 of 9. And then right before that, they snapped the Knicks winning streak at 9 games.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City has now won a franchise record 15 in a row and 19 of 20. SGA is rolling. They're rolling. I don't have enough good things to say about this team.
I mean, you've been on this. They're the best team in the NBA. I'm done sort of haltingly saying one of the best and including the Celtics in the back of my mind. You said it. Beat up on a Knicks team that I think is pretty good. Beat up on a Celtics team that we know is really good. And I know I keep saying this. Chet's, I mean, they're not even – they're still waiting on their second best player.
Anil Caruso, who's a useful, obviously, rotation piece and the otherworldly defender, made second team all defense last year. Yeah, what they're doing at not full strength makes me think, what happens when they are?
They're the best team in the NBA. I think they are the deepest team in the NBA. They are incredibly fun. The hesitancy that was out there about SGA being the or a top tier MVP candidate should just evaporate into the ether now. I mean, if it hasn't already, he is one of the best players in the NBA, and they're fun to watch. And
super fun.
Not that other good. I think they're the most joyously fun team to watch in the NBA. They're also the best team in the league. And I think that Celtics win, John, what a dominating victory. I have a caveat here on it, but it does highlight, it legitimizes this 15-game win streak. I mean, I don't know what to say either. They're awesome.
It does legitimize the 15-game win streak, because to have this stretch too, and we're going to get into when they might lose, again, if ever. They're going to play the Cavs on Wednesday. The Cavs are super hot right now.
Yeah.
But this stretch, it's not like they're playing bad teams. I mean, the Knicks came in extremely hot and looked like they were going to win that game. And then Oklahoma City came roaring back from behind. Over this past week, Bill, they were down 12 against Minnesota. W. They were down 16 against the Clippers on Thursday. W. Very next night, the Knicks, they're down 14. Knicks are hot as hell. W. And then yesterday, they were down 13 against the defending champion Boston Celtics, who have the second best offense in the NBA. Win that game, Bill. That was only the 4th time all season that the Celtics have had their main 6 guys on the floor together. So they were fully healthy, and they held the Celtics to 27 points in the second half. That is the fewest points by any team in any half this season. They did it to the Celtics.
Let me ask you a question that I've been pondering, because something we talk about a lot, and you bring up a lot, rightfully so, is the goal of the Celtics to shoot more 3-point shots than any team in the history of the game, and that there's going to be some variance, right? There's going to be nights where they did not shoot well from the 3-point line. And in the second half in particular, they made, let's look at it over here, 3 of 24 3-point shots for 12.5%. So what I'm trying to figure out in my mind is this just part of the equation? And I'm not saying we're overreacting to the Thunder's excellence. That's real. But if this is a finals preview, which it could be, is this just going to happen? And they're going to lose a game or two to a team this good, because there's going to be games where they just go 3 of 20-something from the 3-point line late in the game.
Yeah, I think Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla have already figured out how they want to play. And this is it. This is baked into the model. I mean, they shot sub 20% yesterday, and there's going to be games like that where Yeah, not good. When the three isn't falling, that they're beatable. Now that's like the worst case scenario against a team that is uniquely set up to make it difficult for them. And the other thing is, the Thunder are, I believe, second in opponents' turnovers and points off turnovers, and they showed that yesterday, where they got into guys like Jaylen Brown, who maybe sometimes have a little bit of a loose dribble, and turn those turnovers into points. And they were harassing them on the perimeter. They've got so many good perimeter defenders. The other thing is, for the Thunder, their supporting cast is really interesting. When you were talking about how deep they are, so deep. We know that, like, SGA being an MVP candidate is obvious, right? Jalen Williams could very easily be, and should be, I think, an all-star this season. Lou Dort is underrated. Isaiah Hartenstein has been seamlessly integrated. But then you get to guys like on Friday, you had Aaron Wiggins having a big night. They don't win that without Aaron Wiggins getting really hot. And then yesterday, Lou Dort hit massive three after massive three. And sometimes, like, we forget about those guys. And that's
Isaiah Joe sometimes, not in this game, but they can throw him out there.
Like, on Friday, I had the HQ hit afterwards, and I'm like, Aaron Wiggins, I'd have to sit down and really look at their roster. What's he, their 8th or 9th best player? And he was spectacular that night. So that makes it that much harder to beat a team like OKC. I'm with you. I think we can take the qualifiers off of this, and it's safe to say that this is the best team in the NBA.
I think one of the things that goes maybe broadly in the NBA underappreciated. So we all know that Sam Presti racked up a bunch of assets, still has them, did this rebuild post the last time he had a couple superstars, fleeced the Clippers to bring SGA over, and was right and was brilliant in that rebuild. But I think sometimes, broadly speaking, NBA fans or sports fans don't give appreciation to, for 10 or 12 years, they've had a very specific plan of how to develop young talent, and their ability to do that at every single level of the players they draft. And to your point about some of these guys that are the 7th or 8th or 9th best player, they put a lot of effort into developing the guys that they have. And I think they're as good as anybody in the NBA. Is whoever they have drafted or have on their roster, they find a way, not just through coaching, but through player development, to get the absolute best out of these guys. And so you've got this sort of incubation reality where, SGA is amazing, and that's a success because they sort of knew what he was, and they went and they got him, and they drafted Chet, and they drafted a bunch of these guys. And Presti has a history of drafting guys who are high-level draft picks who are really, really good. They also just, whoever they end up with, however they acquire them, they use their G League team, and they use some internal mechanisms in Oklahoma City. And the joke is there that there's nothing to do in Oklahoma City but go to the gym, and that's why that's what they'll tell you. That's what they'll joke. But it's pretty remarkable, I think, their developmental success stories and how that adds to everything we're talking about with some of the guys that we're bringing up.
I mean, they had Dagnall in the G League too, right? And they bring him along, and like they even developed him.
You're right.
It's a nice problem to have, but it is a little bit of a problem because the more I think about this, like, what do they do with all those picks? You can't use them all. And if you flip them for a player, like, your team is already incredibly good. Why would you want to mess with it? What the hell do you do with all those picks? I mean,
so this is a real, I haven't thought of this. Let me take your question and let's say you win an NBA championship this year, which not unreasonable.
Could very well happen.
You're not going to mess with it. You're not going to go, even if Kevin Durant became available, or I don't know, whoever it is. Why? Like, why do you just use assuming things keep going well, as they come up, I suppose you just use them and you have internal competition.
You can't roster all those kids.
I mean, so it's like whoever the 8th or 9th guy is, if he's not as good as whoever you drafted, just move him on.
Oh man,
I think so.
It's such a nice problem to have. They're incredible. They're so fun to watch. I have a question for you. Rest of the season, then I want to look at their upcoming schedule and figure, because that Wednesday game is going to be so good. Rank these teams the rest of the way. I guess we've already landed on
the rest of the way
as Oklahoma City, but the rest of the way, Oklahoma City, the Cavs, and the Celtics.
That's a great question. And by the way, the Cavs are in my sort of radar, but we'll get to it. But they've lost 4 games. I mean,
they've won 10 in a row. They're incredible.
They're incredible. The rest of the way. So we're including the playoffs? Like the
rest of the season, the rest of the postseason, the rest of the way.
OKC 1, Boston 2, Cleveland disrespected at 3. It's the best record.
It's tough because I think we're at the point now where, as we reach, like, we're approaching the halfway point. we have to believe our lying eyes on the Cavs, who, as I mentioned, they've won 10 in a row and 14 of 15. They're 31-4, Bill. In the history of the NBA, only 10 teams have started out that hot. 6 of them won the title. And we're still sitting here going, I'm not sure about the Cavs. I'm a believer. I mean, look, Boston's the defending champs, and they're super deep. And, the way that they play, because they haven't been as efficient shooting the ball from three, they are gettable on certain nights. But at some point, don't we have to look at the Cavs and, like, we have such a body of work now. Like, as long as they stay healthy, this is a real thing.
I know. I just to defend my disrespect of a great Cavs team, I think Boston's gettable on certain nights. I'm not sure they're gettable 4 times in 7 games, right? So
what about with home court? Because they're, I mean, look, right now they're what?
I think
5.5 back of the Cavs.
I think they'll be favored in every series they play in, at least in the Eastern Conference playoffs, including when they go on the road. If they play on the road against Cleveland, if they both advance to the conference finals. So here's the other thing that I'm curious about. I don't know if you have a perspective. The NBA's goal is obviously parity. That is Adam Silver's thing, and I think we've seen that. They flattened the ceiling for a lot. They brought down the ceiling for a lot of teams. The Nuggets are a lot of teams are an example with the aprons and the way things work. Why do we have 3 by record, and I think, or 2 by record, and I think 3 if you include the Celtics, utterly dominating teams? I mean, you're talking a historic level of excellence, at least by record, by the Thunder and by the Cavs approaching the halfway point. It's really interesting, maybe just because they built their teams the right way and they caught a break the way the Warriors did back in the day when the CBA changed things, that some of the other teams got squeezed with the apron.
Man, if it's Cavs OKC, the league is going to have a conniption. Think about like those 2 markets.
Oh, the rate.
I mean, how much we
would. Yeah, you're right though.
Yeah, I mean, look, how much we talked about it for the Cup. Like, look, for us, I'd be fine with it. I think that would be a really fun series and a good series to watch. But that's a hardcore basketball junkie series. They need the Celtics to win the Eastern Conference, because if it's Cleveland and Oklahoma City, all we're going to hear about is the ratings and the cities and the markets and the whole bit.
The Knicks would be a win too in that respect. The Knicks would be. Yeah.
Okay. So as we mentioned, they've won 15 in a row and 19 of 20 Oklahoma City has. Upcoming schedule here, Bill. Cavs on Wednesday. They're about to go on a little road trip here. So they're at the Cavs on Wednesday. Then they're at the Knicks on Friday. Then they've got the Wiz. We're going to say that that's a W. And then they've got the stupid Philadelphia basketball team after that. 4 games in a row. Then they're home again to the Cavs. So when is the next loss for Oklahoma City, do you think?
Give me the schedule again.
It's at Cavs, at Knicks, at Wiz, at Sixers, and then home Cavs.
Oh, it's at Sixers. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go.
I walk into that every time.
Yeah, that's good. So if I have this right, boy, that's amazing. If I have this right, the Cavs and the Thunder have fewer combined losses than the Celtics have losses this year.
I believe so. Let me look right now.
So it feels disrespectful.
Losses 4-9. Correct. They do. They have fewer combined losses. Yes.
It's
and by
crazy.
The way, the Cavs they only have 1 loss at home this season, and Oklahoma City only has 2. So they're about to go on the road to play the only team in the NBA that's better at home than they are.
Sam Quinn, our colleague Sam Quinn, who does the show with you on Thursdays, had a great tweet over the weekend. I don't know when I saw my timeline this morning. It went through all 5 of the Thunder's losses, and in every case, it's Chet gets hurt at the beginning of the game, sort of air goes out of the tires, and Shea, I think, had a buzzer beater to win or tie that got blocked, and they're all like close. Wemby goes off for 1,000,000 points. I think it might have been one of them, whatever it was. I'll go. If they're going to lose one of the games you just told me, it's got to be the game on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Cavs, but I'm gonna say none of them.
I mean, the Knicks gave him a fight in that game.
They did.
Thibs kept all of his guys. I think they still might be on the floor in Oklahoma City as we speak, because he refused to go to the bench. I'm going to mention that in Weekend Radar coming up. But yeah, I cannot wait for that Cavs game on Wednesday. That's going to be a really good one. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to do what I just said. Do a little Weekend Radar coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can get us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Please download, subscribe, leave a review. And then on Spotify, if you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can leave us a comment or a question on the show. Weekend radar time, Bill. You lead us off.
Let me start with one we've already hit, but I wrote it down because I wanted to just note the Cavs because I knew the Thunder were going to get a lot of the love because of the 2 big wins. So I've already said 31-4 is amazing. And even though we just talked about it, I just want to shout out Kobe Altman, the GM, the entire organization. They are not being talked about as often as other teams, let alone teams that have accomplished what they've accomplished. We do here, but if you sort of go to some of the other channels out there, there's not enough Cavs talk. They're amazing.
There isn't. And why do you think that is? I mean, is it just a market thing or because they have the best record in the NBA, the second best point differential in the NBA, the second longest winning streak, the best home record. You go on and on about their offense. They have got a top 10 defense. You know, like what is it about the Cavs that makes, is it just because
weird.
Like Donovan Mitchell is a star, but not like he's not a, MVP candidate level star. I mean, the market, what is it about the Cavs that we don't give them enough of their due and credit?
I'm leery to say it's the market just because Oklahoma City is by NBA standards a tiny place. Yeah. But there's a history in Oklahoma City of like that shine of Kevin Durant and Harden and Westbrook, even though it's a long time ago. Maybe fans are sort of trained or media that's a legitimate place. But I mean, Cleveland had LeBron twice. I don't know. Maybe it's, you know what? I wonder if it's Donovan Mitchell doubt. I wonder if it's just people not taking them as seriously because they have not seen Donovan Mitchell have real success in the playoffs. And he's the face of the team, right? I mean, he is the face of a team. He's not in an MVP conversation the way that Shea is. Maybe that's part of it. They're not a
super sexy team. I mean, it's not like that, when they had LeBron and everybody's like, oh, LeBron's in Cleveland or LeBron's back in Cleveland. They're greater than the sum of their parts in a lot of ways. Their bench unit is really good. They shoot really well. They're just like a professional, smart, competent basketball team. They defend together. I guess maybe it's like the lack of
not as sexy.
Super. Yeah. Like,
and to your point, I think everyone knows how amazing Chet Holmgren's great when he's healthy, but he's also interesting, right? He's a league pass guy before that when the Thunder. I don't think people realize how good Evan Mobley is. I mean, I think people know that he's good, but he doesn't get the same level of celebration, success. We're not throwing shine his direction. That guy has been awesome this year. So he's sort of a microcosm to your point of this team is they're great, but they don't get the superstar sexy treatment of this is must-watch basketball.
Is this DB comment on their guards are small and don't defend, their bigs can't space the floor or switch? Is this about the Cavs? We know. Producer Aaron, because I would take umbrage with much, if not all of that, with the exception of, I guess, Jared Allen not really spacing the floor. But Evan Mobley has shot the three considerably better this season and has a real glow up and would be at the top of my list for most improved players. He's going to be an all-star. He's been fantastic. While we're on the topic of things that have happened, that we discussed a little bit earlier. So I mentioned the Knicks losing that game, right? What did Thibs do? Here we go. Thibs can't stop, right? All 5 starters in that game, Bill. We bring this up so much, but I just want to flag it one more time. So the Knicks were in that game at Oklahoma City. It looked like they were going to win it. They ended up blowing a big lead. Fine, whatever. All 5 starters, Bill, played 40 or more minutes in that loss. The bench unit combined.
Oh my God.
The Nets, 5 points in 28 minutes. 5 points for the bench in 28 minutes. Meanwhile, Oklahoma City's bench in that game, 44 points in 66 minutes. We know that, as we said, Oklahoma City, super deep. It's constructed in a much different way. But is it just, it can't be that every single team that Thibs has ever coached has had an awful bench unit. It can't be that they just, like, personnel-wise, they just don't have anybody every single time. It's him.
I mean, does he get a secret contract bonus? Does he get unlimited Marriott points? Because that's what always motivated me when I was traveling. For every minute his guys play, I don't. It's almost as if he thinks the science is the opposite of what it is, and I don't know. It's a mania for him. It doesn't even make sense.
And you know what? Look, like that, they were, as I mentioned, they were in that game. It looked like they were going to win it. They're having a good season. The offense is humming. All of these things, like he gets the most out of his guys. It's just that he really gets the most out of his guys. He wrings out every little drop of the guys that he likes. And at some point, we've discussed that it could end up coming back to bite them. All right, give me another one.
I mean, give me the Sixers, baby. This is like a tradition on the show. What a big win against the Nets on Saturday. Hey, they've won 7 of 10, right? They're slowly climbing, almost not even really that close to respectability. I mean, I'm just going to keep on with this song and dance. I know that you doubt your Sixers. I know they cause you pain. Here they come, John.
They're one game out of the 10 spot. I told you in our show, I think it was on Friday when we did a little New Year's resolutions, not to get tricked into believing these guys. It'll be interesting to see what happens. This will be something that we discuss tomorrow because they're playing the Suns tonight, but the Suns are in free fall and the Sixers are trying to like scramble back. And apparently the Suns are going to mix up their starting lineup tonight and put Brad Beal and Nurk on the bench. So I want to see what happens with that. But
good luck.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. Something will go wrong with the Sixers. Fate will intervene. They'll face plant. They'll step on some rakes. I wanted to run this one past you too. So we were discussing. So Jimmy Butler comes out and really like draws a line in the sand. The Heat end up suspending him. The NBA PA is going to push back on that. He'll probably recoup some of that money. But over the week, you and I both flagged the Warriors as, hey, this would make a lot of sense because I'm not sure that Jonathan Kuminga is really going to work out there. You unplug somebody like Wiggins, who he's been a nice piece for them at times, although inconsistent, but I think you can part with him pretty safely and not be that broken up about it. The Athletic reported that the Warriors have no interest in Jimmy Butler, which I thought was kind of surprising. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I wasn't able to confirm it either. I am surprised by it, particularly because I think Jimmy Butler is really interesting. I think there's a lot of nuance to be had about the value that he does or doesn't bring to a team on and off the court. I think it's really interesting in both scenarios. He can be a lot. This is not breaking news.
Yeah.
The Warriors are uniquely positioned, I think, to manage difficult or rambunctious, or in this case, really sort of driven perfectionist personalities. It feels like that's a locker room where it would work. Right, they've handled some personalities before. They've got Draymond. They have a culture that you're not going to go and you're not going to change. You may disrupt it a little bit. I just think the Warriors are a really good fit. Now, there's always the question of, because I get not lied to, but there's a lot of like leverage games going on, and there's a lot of sort of the dark arts here where you leak stuff but you're trying to lower a price, because who knows how many actual suitors there are for Jimmy Butler. And if you're the Warriors, and all of us sort of see that as the right fit, because the Heat are under massive pressure to move on from Jimmy Butler. Obviously, they suspended him. Pat Riley does this, by the way. We should have this talk at some point. This is a Pat Riley problem as much as a Jimmy Butler problem. He alienates every star that's been there going back to Shaq. Yes. I mean, Shaq, the stories go, punched him or attacked him. Like, tried to attack him at a practice when they shipped him out to Phoenix. If you're the Warriors and everyone knows that you're the one fit that makes sense because you have this desperation to sort of aid Steph. And this is on my weekend radar too, just the inconsistency of the Warriors over the weekend. And just it reinforces they need help. Maybe you're trying your best to lower the price to a reasonable place, because the Heat were not reasonable, as I understand it, in their trade conversations with Portland, which is why they ended up they were so dogmatic about what they wanted. It's part of the reason that Drew Holiday is in Boston and Damian Lillard is in Milwaukee. Maybe the Warriors are trying to manage this in a way that to sort of put pressure on Miami, but I don't know that. I'm just speculating. It's a weird report.
I think that makes sense, that they might be posturing a little bit, but if they do acquire Jimmy Butler, let's just say it is posturing and they acquire Jimmy Butler, he's got a player option next season for $52.4 million. If you trade for him, you're going to try to convince him you're going to opt out of that. We'll re-sign you. What's the deal for a 35, going to be 36-year-old Jimmy Butler, who a lot of mileage on those tires, hasn't been available, only averaged fewer than 60 games per season in the first 5 seasons with the Heat, has missed a third of his games this year.
Missed the playoffs last year.
Yeah. And also it's like 3 for $100 million, something that he'd even take. And is that and
what does he want?
Well, yeah.
Does he want money or does he want to win? That's the other, because he wanted money in the summer and now he wants to go somewhere where he can get his joy back. Is his joy his bank account or is it basketball?
Well, in that I don't know, but in that scenario, he'd have a better shot to win, I think, with Steph and Draymond than what they've, what's currently constituted with the Heat. But again, like, how many years and how much money are you going to need to get him to enjoy himself? Right. And now all of a sudden you're looking at 38, 39-year-old Jimmy Butler. That's diminishing returns for me. But then on the other side, the Heat are kind of in a no-win situation here. I was looking at this, Bill. If they make the playoffs, they owe their first rounder to OKC, yet another pick that the
unbelievable.
Wherever it falls outside the top 14, if the Heat make the playoffs this year, then it goes to Oklahoma City. If they miss the playoffs somehow, if they deal Jimmy and the wheels come off of this thing, then they owe their 2026 first rounder to the Heat unprotected. So it's kind of like screwed either way here. Yeah. I don't know which one I'd like better. I guess make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, what they've told me, I mean, I obviously covered that team back in the day, and I know a bunch of people there. We've had some conversations. They claim, and they said it with a lot more confidence a few weeks ago than a few days ago, but they still claim they don't do rebuilds. And they think that they think, delusional though it may be to many people, they think they can compete against the Celtics right now. And so I think they would rather have the playoffs now, because they believe that if they make it as a top 6 seed and they get someone now for Jimmy Butler that, on the aggregate replaces him, right, fills that need, they think they can be competitive. Are Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga that? I mean, are you buying those?
Well, I'm not a Kuminga guy. I haven't seen him take that step forward this year, but it might be an addition by subtraction situation, just because like it's so toxic with Jimmy right now that sometimes you unplug, a problem in the locker room, and it's just like guys are getting along. The tension is gone, and now you can just
the Tyler Hero clip. Have you seen this of Tyler Hero?
No,
having to answer. So Tyler Hero basically was asked when Jimmy did this, "What do you think?" And he just he clearly wanted to crawl under a rock and just hide. Yeah. But there was just a vibe of it's been bad for a while. By the way, Wiggins is so inconsistent. I don't know who he is going to be from month to month, but in theory, at say 80% of his peak in Golden State, it's a nice fit with what the Heat want to do. I mean, he's kind of a Heat way kind of player when he's playing well.
Yeah.
There's no good solutions here.
I don't think so either. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we will continue with Weekend Radar. We got a couple more for you, and then we'll do Team of the Night. This is Beyond the Arc.
Baby, we are gonna start a fire.
From world-renowned clubs
simply devastating
to worldwide stars.
Wrexham have done it. This incredible ride continues.
The English Football League on CBS Sports Network, and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the little bell symbol. You'll get notified when we go live. We are live almost every day, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern. The one exception this week is when we have our network show on Wednesday. All right, Bill, here's one for you. We talked about the Suns changing their lineup, right? The Suns, after they get Kevin Durant back, they lost 4 in a row now, and they're like, we got to change something. This isn't working out. Enter the Wolves. The Wolves have decided, or at least Chris Finch has decided, screw it, I'm going to ride this thing off the cliff. They are now 17-17. They're 10th in the Western Conference. They've lost 3 in a row, including a bad loss to the Pistons on Saturday, where Ant went for a career-high 53 points and hit 10 threes. And so afterwards, Chris Finch is asked about it, and people are like, basically what you and I have said this entire season, hey, you're going to change up the starting lineup, maybe move Julius Randle to the bench. Chris Finch, if I felt that the magic bullet was changing the starting lineup, I would have done that already. I don't think I'm being particularly stubborn. Not being stubborn here, Bill. There's a chain reaction to everything you do. There are other combinations and things that go on the floor that are just as important, if not more so, than the starting lineup. All right, for one, he's right. Starting lineup is less important than the closing lineup. But the mix of who you have on the floor at the same time is very important. So forget about the idea of starting lineup. Isn't it time to stagger Julius Randle and Ant?
So this is on my weekend radar, and I just wrote down no more Julius Randle. So take that.
No more period. Forget about moving him to the bench.
At least here's the thing. I don't know to what degree the front office wants Julius Randle to stick around and be there next year and to keep him happy to do that, because it would explain this intractability when it comes to experimenting and also it's not a secret that Ant is pissed off. He has been public about the fact that it's not going well. There have been reports out of Minnesota more specific about him and Randle not getting along. And that game you're referencing is a perfect reminder that you have a world-class top 5 level superstar, a team that's underperforming, Cat's not there anymore, status quo's not doing it. And to your exact point, you're just going to set the thing on fire. I mean, it's already a dumpster fire moving down the water. And now there's got to be something you can do just to break the monotony of mediocrity and frustration that is clearly growing. You can just see it when these guys talk post-game.
Yeah, well, I'm not the body language guy, and even I noticed on Saturday how bad the body language was on that team. And you're right. I mean, Ant has not made it a secret that he is displeased by the way the team has played, by the way that they don't get along, that they don't interact, they don't communicate. This last year, Chris Finch was a Coach of the Year candidate. This year, he's just decided, I'm not going to at least try to pull some of these levers. This is going to be it. Like, I think you've seen enough of this to know that this isn't working. This trade, as it stands right now on January 6th, has been an unmitigated disaster for the Wolves. And yes, they did it for financial fiduciary reasons. They were in absolute cap hell, and it makes sense. And they've got to free up some money for the future. And it wasn't going to be a long-term fit. Fine. As basketball goes, this is horrible. It's Dante DiVincenzo has not played to his level, but Julius Randle has been a net minus in every possible way.
You've also got this weird situation where you're right. The reasons that they made the move that they made, they were fiduciary. They were about the cap. They were about some flexibility. They were about long-term or medium-term basketball decision-making, not short-term, and sometimes that costs you. But what are the consequences if the GM got that wrong? To whom is he reporting? There's an ownership situation here that's also a hot freaking mess.
Yep.
And it can, those things, when you have no boss, it sometimes can create, I think you and I had this conversation a month ago, or maybe earlier, like my worry, there's leeway here. If you're in the front office, who's going to fire you? Who are you working for?
That's a great point. I mean, I'm a huge believer in Tim Connolly. He built not one, but two championship contenders.
Smart guy.
Super smart guy. And when he looks at the books and goes, we got to move on from Cat, I get it. And maybe he has a super smart plan, long-term vision for what happens this offseason with Julius Randle and how they like reboot once they get him off the books. I believe in all that. But if I'm him, I'm like having a little conversation with Chris Finch and being like, why don't we just try this?
Do you think, because only one of two things make sense, and I think it's going to be the latter, but the first is they want Julius Randle to be there, and that's why they're forcing him into this lineup, and it's keep him happy. And the other, I think, for me, more likely outcome is this is a one-off year where they are just accepting that this is the consequence of getting to a financial place where they have more flexibility. They're going to build around Anthony Edwards long-term. Randall's going somewhere else unless it's a really low price. And they understand but can't say publicly it's a rebuild year, even though you're still theoretic. It's a gap year. That's what's going on, right? This is do the best you can in 24, 25. Really, it's a year or two down the road where the fruits of this decision are hopefully coming.
Yeah, I think big picture, them looking at this as a gap year, I think probably is exactly what's happening. I'm just thinking about like they have smart people there. It's not like Chris Finch. I mean, he's saying I'm not being stubborn. Okay, right. Put that aside for a second. Chris Finch is a smart guy. He's got a lot of smart guys around him, and Tim Connolly is incredibly smart. And that front office, I know some of the people in the front office there, they're all bright. It's not like they haven't looked at this, and they aren't also thinking the same thing that you and I and all the Minnesota Timberwolves fans are thinking about, like, why wouldn't you just try Naz Reid in the starting lineup? They must have crunched numbers and had conversations in the building. It's not like they just decided we're not going to do our due diligence and think this through. But that's the part that makes me wonder, like, what internal metrics are they looking at to say, no, let's keep doing more Julius Randle?
So sometimes in hoops or anything else in life, you can kind of get in the fog of war, right? Things go badly and you're and that's why having a boss is often, even if we don't always love having them, is important. Like, it's someone that has some perspective. They're 10,000 feet higher than we are. They're seeing so maybe I'm overthinking this. It's not like an owner's going to come in and say to a GM, do A, B, and C, and the guy goes, oh my God, you cracked the code. I'm going to put Naz Reid in. But I wonder if maybe the dysfunction from the ownership situation has just created a weird environment where they're operating at 7% less efficiency, or I don't know. It does, because none of this, you're right. Connolly's impressive and the people there are impressive, and Finch has been impressive. This has not been a well-run situation. And it doesn't make sense from a basketball perspective not to try something, just to try something else.
Just to try see if it works. That's why it's just so curious to me, because there are smart people Yes, they don't have anybody at the very top, but there are smart people with their hands still on the wheel here. And this thing has careened around a corner and veered off a cliff.
Let me also just add, and there's no reporting on this. I'm not Anthony Edwards is a Timberwolf, but we live in a world where stars are allowed to wake up one day and decide they don't want to be somewhere or down the road. And I'm from that part of the country, so don't take this the wrong way, Minneapolis. It's cold there. It's not LA. Yeah. It's not New York. And so if you have a superstar who's pissed off at one of his co-stars, who's vocally not happy, who clearly likes the spotlight, I don't understand where even if reality told you, keep with what you're doing, why you wouldn't appease him a little bit. I mean, if he's pissed off at Julius Randle, and if it's not working, and if maybe Randle coming off the bench helps, and Anthony Edwards has all but said, this isn't working, I miss Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm always double-teamed, I don't have any help, this other guy's not doing it, just to manage Anthony Edwards so that a year or two from now, we're not in a position where he wakes up and says, believe Minneapolis, get me to LA. I don't know what they're doing. Should be a consideration too.
All of it. Number one with a bullet. And you know how much I love watching the Wolves, but this has not been a good team to watch. And it's obviously not been a good team to be a part of and experience. So, all right. Other things on your weekend radar.
Last one is just your Rockets, okay. Nice little win. Was that yesterday?
Yes,
just kind of grinding, right? Again, I don't know what are the reasonable expectations for what is the sort of reasonable ceiling for Houston this year. Is it conference final? I don't think it is. I can't really get there.
Conference final pretty good, depending on who they draw. So they ended up losing Jabari Smith for 4 to 8 weeks because he broke his hand, and so
in practice,
yeah, which sucks. And because he was having a nice season for them, and he's a guy who can stretch the floor. He's a really good defender. He is one of their better shooters from distance. And that being a caveat because they're a horrible shooting team. One of the worst field goal and 3-point percentage shooting teams in the NBA. And yet they've got so much athleticism and so much defense, and they can overcome it on most nights. And even last night, Bill, they actually shot the ball pretty well last night. The one thing that I wanted to flag is I've been kind of waiting on this. And I thought it might be, as the season grinds on and maybe Jalen Green he hasn't been very efficient this season at all, but inserting Amen Thompson into the starting lineup, that kid is just,
you love that kid,
hyper dynamic, athletic, and had a zillion rebounds last night. Now you're going to get a month and a half, 2 months of him in the starting lineup. Last year, as you remember, when Alperen Şengün went down, he was the first guy into the starting lineup. Yeah. He's basically like next guy up for any of their starting five that goes down. I want to see what it looks like with him getting this much run with the starting unit.
They're interesting in that they're deep, but they're not top heavy in the sense that we've had this. Who is the star that wins you? Like Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland. Closer. There's two guys in New York at least, right? Like it's LeBron or AD with the Lakers. You just go around the league. They don't have a closer. They don't have. That's why I don't know what their ceiling is because I think they're still 2 in the West. They grind out these wins.
Back, I think.
Yeah,
7 games back. Yeah.
In my mind, they should be 6 to 9, and it should be impressive. And they've taken such a leap this year that I don't know how they live up to the expectations of where they are in the standings because they're so far ahead of schedule. They should not be the second best team in the Western Conference. They just shouldn't be, despite Denver's struggles and Memphis and John Moran and the Lakers and the Warriors are. I find them really interesting to try to figure out what they're going to be.
I think you hit on it with Memphis that Ja has been only intermittently available and he's got this AC joint sprain, and that's the same shoulder that took him out of action last season. And when Ja is out there, I think Memphis is probably the second best team. But you're right. The Rockets are playing with house money here. They are way ahead of schedule. I just wonder how they improve the team because look, Jalen Green, they gave him that contract this offseason, and it was a little bit of him betting on himself and them kind of hedging their bets. He's so ball dominant. He's so high usage rate and he's so inefficient that that's probably if you're going to unplug a piece and try to find a closer, and package some of your picks, I'd probably go that route.
So
I just don't know who it would be.
The thing is, you need a closer to win now. You do. That might not be the right way the lens to view them through because they shouldn't be in a position where we're talking about them as a conference finals team. And they're so far ahead of schedule. I wonder if you just let it bake a little longer. And if a year from now we're having the same conversation, okay, none of these guys evolved or developed into those players because just watching that game, they're really you said they're long, they're athletic, they play. Ime Udoka is such a great coach. They're so well coached. You have to play defense on that team. They have nights where they can't score, but they can also go up against high-powered offenses and shut them down. I'm just trying to. I'm wondering if I need to start thinking of them as a 7 seed that is a 2 seed, because where they are, they should be a conference finals or better contender. They don't have the piece of that late in games. I'm not sure it matters yet.
I think when we're squinting at it, we're trying to figure out like who is the foil for OKC in the Western Conference. That's part of the problem here.
Yeah, you're right.
Looking at it through that prism, and the answer to that is nobody. Nobody's the foil. Somebody's going to have to play them. But
Denver. Because
they're fourth, and they had that was another one that was on my radar from this weekend, was just how much fun the home and home was between Wemby and Joker.
My God.
So that was really, really entertaining. So this weekend, for people who missed it, you had Wemby and the Spurs. They won at Denver on Friday, and then Joker and the Nugs won at the Spurs on Saturday. I want to run these numbers past you, Bill.
Right.
Wemby over those 2 games combined for 55 points, 51 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and 4 blocks. And then Joker went for 87 points, 28 rebounds, 18 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. Those two, Joker's the best player in the world right now, although SGA's got an MVP case for sure. At some point, when Joker stops being the best player in the world, it's going to be Wemby. And watching those 2 guys go back and forth in 2 consecutive games was so entertaining. I mean, you love watching the Spurs.
Do you want to guess the date? Because I was watching thinking, what is the date? And I came up with one. What is the date that Wemby is clear, like consistently the better player than Joker? Like we're the best player in the world is Wemby, but I think it's the date that I came up with randomly was January 20th, 2026. A little more than a year from now. A little more than a year from now. I think some of that has to be the Spurs have to be a little bit better, right? Like a little. Yeah. If you're the best player in the world, I think you have to be on a team that's sort of in contention, right? You have to. I think it's soon.
I was going to say 2 years, but you might be right. I mean, like he's so good right now, and watching those guys go at each other in those 2 games was eminently entertaining. There's something else that we should mention here for Weekend Radar, because we haven't even gotten to this yet, but it, like in any other year or any other show, it would have maybe even led our show. And this is now at the back end of Weekend Radar as we close the show. Kawhi came back.
I know. Isn't it weird that that's such a nothing burger? Can I tell you why? I was on HQ, I don't know, this weekend. They asked me how significant it was, and I kind of felt bad with this answer. I talk to me every 6 weeks for the next 6 weeks about whether he's still playing and whether or not when we get to the playoffs, if he's I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
For people who missed it, because I guess evidently a lot of people did, they beat the Hawks in that game. He played 19 minutes. He scored 12 points. 3 of 5 from deep. He looked fine. Good. But I'm kind of with you. Like when I heard he was coming back, I shrugged. Then he came back. I shrugged. It's January. Talk to me in April.
Are you a Marvel guy? Did you watch the Marvel before they got dumb? He's the Winter Soldier. Like bring him out of crypto, point him to a goal, go do some stuff, go back into the machine. We'll call you in 6 months. That's what the machine. Yeah, I mean, like he's really good in some stretches, but you can't count on him. We've had this conversation feels like every year for 6 years.
I know. All depends on whether or not he'll be out there for the postseason. A game in January. Congratulations, Kawhi Leonard. You played basketball, and like Ty Lue will get asked a bunch of questions about it, and they'll move on. We're going to move on. Let's do team of the night.
So mine is based on the weekend, and I'm going to go with the Spurs despite the split, just because again, it's this isn't new. But watching Wemby go against the best player on the face of the earth and sort of test himself at that level and play at the level that he did, if you're San Antonio, it's all happening. It maybe 3 years, and maybe 5, and maybe 2. You're going to win an NBA championship with this guy. And those are the most captivating games for the weekend for me. And it was watching San Antonio, not watching Denver, which is sort of a change, right? Usually when I watch Denver, I'm watching to watch Joker, and then whatever else is there is sort of a bonus. And it was inverted this time. So for me, it's the Spurs just on Wemby. Oh my dear God.
I mean, he's been so good. They've been so good. You called this. I was way less bullish on the Spurs this season than you were. And you were like, they could be a play-in team. Bill, right now, as we record this, They're 8th in the Western Conference. They're only 2 games out of the playoffs proper. Like if they, I mean, it's mind blowing. So yes, they talk about ahead of the curve, much like the Houston. Both teams in Texas, young teams are well
and they can catch Dallas because of Luka's injury, and they're not playing well.
Yeah. 4th time as team of the night for the Spurs. They are tied for first. This is an obvious one. I'm just going to say it's Oklahoma City. They've been playing out of their head, but I just wanted to throw, this is not quite a team of the night thing. So I'm going to say Oklahoma City's team of the night. Fine. They've won 15 in a row. They deserve it. Good for you. I just want to run this past you. Since firing Mike Brown, the Kings now all of a sudden they blew out the Warriors last night. I'm sorry, Aaron, put on your earmuffs. Producer Aaron's a Warriors fan. Blew out the Warriors by 30 in San Francisco last night. They didn't have De'Aaron Fox last night. Bill, all of a sudden they've won 4 in a row in their game. They're a game out of the play-in. Are the Kings back?
I had this on my weekend radar and just didn't bring it up because I don't know the answer. It's such a, and poor Mike Brown. I like him as a person.
He's a good coach. He's a good dude.
Yeah, good dude. It feels a bit like one of those responses. So the answer is probably no. I think probably this is a response to the coach getting fired, but it doesn't reflect well on Mike Brown that the team is playing. He's gone. Thank God. Here we go. Those things usually don't last, right? That momentum of I've had jobs. I've had jobs. I won't speak for you. I had a job in Des Moines where we had an executive editor who was, when I was a newspaper person, was beloved, and he quit. And they hired a woman out of, I think, Idaho. And the report was that everyone celebrated in Idaho when she left. And we thought, how bad can she be? Hello, Carolyn. And then she came in, and when she left, I was already gone. Everybody celebrated. And like the newspaper literally did the best work it had done in years for the next 6 weeks, right? And then you kind of go back to your regular life. But that's human nature. So I don't think Sacramento's probably not. They're probably what we thought they were. But it is an interesting response to Brown being gone.
I mean, not having De'Aaron Fox and winning by 30 on the road at the Warriors, I just don't
need to win games.
I sat there. I watched a good chunk of that game because I kept waiting for the Warriors to go on a run, and I kept thinking, how is this happening? And then I sat there and I stared at the box score afterwards, and I still don't understand how it happened, but it did. So congratulations to the Kings on maybe being back. All right, we're gonna take. That's gonna do it for us today. That's gonna be it. We're gonna go on about our business. Bill and I are going to be on HQ. What time are we on HQ?
We are on 5:10 Eastern. And if you're just, because we've added some viewers here.
Yes.
John's mustache, which is fabulous, is even better on HQ because it pops with the sports code and the move. So just
shirt.
So me, John, and the mustache will be on it. I think it's 5:10 Eastern time today.
Three-man weave between you, me, and the mustache. Come and join us on CBS Sports HQ. You can find that online. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back at it on Tuesday live right here on YouTube at noon Eastern. Please come and join us. You can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Ryder, I am John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.